Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and welcome aboard the Eastern Express. Ukraine is bracing for the difficulties of a winter shaped not by weather but by war. As Russia intensifies its campaign against the country's energy system, hitting power plants, substations, and heating facilities almost daily, millions are facing shorter days, darker nights, and the grim reality of fighting cold as well as conquest. But beneath the rolling blackouts and emergency shutdowns, something else is taking shape. A sector that refuses to collapse, a state determined to reform itself mid-war, and a future where Ukraine's energy architecture is no longer a hostage to Moscow. On this episode, we look at a system under attack, a governance crisis unfolding in real time, and the path towards a rebirth forged in fire. So, without further ado, let's take a look at our latest report to find out more.
Despite the ongoing attempts to reach some sort of peace that could at least suspend the war in Ukraine, Russia is doubling down its campaign of terror against the Ukrainian population. In a recent massive aerial attack focused against Ukraine's south, Moscow's forces launched hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles. The target was the region's energy infrastructure network. Damage to energy infrastructure ahead of winter means that the Russians are aiming to plunge Ukraine's population into a cold darkness. Ukrainians are skeptical that a satisfactory peace deal can be achieved, yet with each passing month, exhaustion of the conflict and the terror that the Russians bring might be becoming a burden far too heavy to bear.
2025 has been one of the deadliest for the people of Ukraine. Civilian casualties between January and November this year were 24% higher compared to the same period in 2024. These figures continue to increase as the Russian Federation escalates its aerial attacks across Ukraine.
Widespread outages have been reported not just in Odessa, but also in other parts of Ukraine like Sumy and Mykolaiv. Thousands of homes have been left without power and public infrastructure has stopped operating in several towns. Many areas have been forced to switch to backup generators. But despite this enroaching darkness, Ukraine's local communities are coming together to help fix, or at least help alleviate these effects.
And now, let's zone in on the east-planning portion of our show. The ongoing conflict is being used as an opportunity by both Ukraine and its allies. An opportunity for Kyiv to teach its Western partners how to defend themselves against the tactics employed by the Russian army, especially when it comes to protecting infrastructure.
One of Russia's favored tactics throughout the war has been to strike Ukrainian energy infrastructure and strike it hard, plunging tens of thousands of Ukrainians into darkness. Ukraine's state-owned energy company Ukrenergo has lately been busy teaching its Western counterparts and partners about how to restore energy sites destroyed by such attacks or how to defend them in the first place. The company has been holding workshops with German, Polish and Lithuanian power operators in particular. Many European officials have become concerned that recent Russian incursions into European airspace are tests which will lead to Russian forces attempting acts of sabotage against Europe's energy structures. This is, however, not the only area in which Ukraine has been sharing its experiences. Over the course of the war, Ukrainian soldiers and commanders have been busy both training abroad and sharing the different strategies that they have been using against the Russians. As Europe is becoming increasingly worried about potential Russian attacks, Ukrainian battlefield experience is seen as something that could turn out to be a lifesaver.
And now, let's take a look at the issue in greater detail. Russia's forces have made energy a frontline target, launching daily strikes on generation sites, transmission nodes, and heating infrastructure. More than 1 million people across Kyiv, Odessa, Chernihiv, Dnipro, and Kharkiv were left without electricity over the weekend. Residents in the capital now talk about electricity in terms they previously haven't used since 1990. A few hours here, a few hours there, with outages scheduled like unwelcome appointments. Now, this strategy strikes at an old vulnerability. For decades, Ukraine's energy architecture was woven into Russia's system, a legacy of the Soviet integrated grid in an era in which Kyiv depended on Moscow for nuclear fuel, spare parts, and gas. In 2021, Ukraine generated more than 158 billion kilowatt per hours of electricity, with nuclear power making up more than half of all of the output. Zaporizhzhia, the largest nuclear plant in Europe, was once the backbone of this entire system. But that world no longer exists. Russia's attack have turned energy into a battlefield and winter into a test of national endurance. Even before the full-scale invasion, Ukraine had begun reconstructing itself away from Moscow's influence. After Russian forces shelled the Luhansk thermal power plant in 2015, Kyiv made a strategic choice: independence. It cut off direct gas imports from Russia, reformed electricity markets, and began transitioning its Soviet-era reactors to American nuclear fuel. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion, Ukraine disconnected from the Russian and Belarusian grid, and within weeks synchronized with the ENTSO-E, the European energy system. What was once a multi-year process became an emergency lifeline. Now, with this single move, Ukraine relocated its energy future westward, laying the foundation for deeper economic and political integration within Europe. Now, Russia responded by escalating its attacks. Ukraine enters winter with a massive deficit in flexible generation, heavy dependence on nuclear units that cannot quickly adjust output, shattered hydropower assets, and damaged gas infrastructure. Without substantial Western assistance, especially air defense systems, transformers, spare parts, and budgetary support, the outages will deepen. But Ukraine retains several strategic advantages. Integration with ENTSO-E is permanent. Russia can no longer weaponize the grid connection. Cross-border links with Poland, Slovakia, Romania are expanding. And when the war ends, Ukraine could become an energy exporter to Central and Eastern Europe. Russia's ability to shape European energy security is shrinking. Ukraine's role in that architecture is growing. The next decade will be about modernization, corporatization, and integration, transforming a fragile wartime grid into a resilient, future-oriented system embedded in the West. Out of devastation comes direction, out of pressure comes reform, and out of this winter, the foundations of a very different energy landscape may emerge. And now, here to share more light on the issue is Piotr Kazuwara, president of the UA Future Foundation. Hello, sir, and welcome to Eastern Express.
Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation.
So as winter approaches, the Russians are still relentlessly pounding Ukraine's energy infrastructure. I can imagine things being very difficult over there. Can you help us give us a brief look and an update of the situation on the ground?
I am now in Kiev. It's very difficult to live in the capital of Ukraine because, for example, in last weekend, yesterday, I didn't have the electricity for a whole day. Today it was off till the morning, and I still have about hour and a half of the electricity. So as every human being in Kiev, I have to do everything what is important in this time, like cook my lunch, do the laundry, and etc., etc. So situation in Kiev, it's a million people city, so it's very difficult to live here because time to time you don't have traffic lights. For example, the restaurants, they cannot work, supermarket cannot work normally because they need to turn off all the fridges, for example, so food is wasting, and this kind of thing. So unfortunately, it's not only Kiev, it's many Ukrainian cities have the same difficulties as we have here in the capital.
And one thing people are worried about is how's the Ukrainian going to sustain the winter? As I've been speaking to other people from Kyiv, and they've been saying that heating is going to be an issue as the winter grows colder. And right now they're turning up the heating during the hours when electricity still functions, and just hoping to seal that warmth in for as long as possible. Do you think that it is sustainable, or are there any governmental measures to help alleviate some of the situations?
If this kind of situation will happen in Poland or in Germany or in the United States or in Great Britain, and you will feel how it is to live without the electricity for almost whole week or whole month, and how to survive the winter without a heating, probably it will be problem for thousands of people, for millions of people, because people are not used to live in this kind of circumstances. This is already the fourth very hard winter for Ukrainian people. So most of us, we already are prepared for the winter. We have our own generators. Usually we have our own batteries, a lot of power banks. For example, we know how to adjust our apartments for the difficult time. But right now we have about -1, -3 degrees. So it's kind of okay to survive even without the heating this few hours. But try to imagine Donbas region, for example, where you could have about -20, -30 degrees in few days. Or at the beginning of January, and it will be very difficult for the people. So you have no water, you have no electricity, and you have no heating, and it's very difficult to find food and to heat it up as well. So yes, it will be difficult, but also we need to remember that this is the fourth difficult winter for Ukrainian people. So a lot of us, we know how to survive already. We need to learn, how to do it.
Right, life is finding a way, and this again proves the resilience of the Ukrainian people that's under such harsh circumstances. Now, speaking of adaptation, has the planning for the electricity and any power infrastructure shifted throughout all these years, seeing that, well, the Russians do have a pattern of attacking these infrastructure? Do you see any changes in planning when it comes to these infrastructure to avoid total blackouts?
The situation is not that difficult because the damages on the critical infrastructure in Ukraine are very huge, and every year Russia is doing new damages. But the planning, as you just mentioned, improved a lot in last years. Ukraine is able to survive winters and summers as well, because you need to use the air conditioning, for example, in the summer. Otherwise, you need to use a shower when it's very, very hot. So Ukraine can survive without electricity, with the blackouts, and replacing these damages that Russia is doing because of help of international partners as United States, as the Netherlands, for example, and Norway, Denmark, Germany as well. These countries are the biggest partners for Ukraine, and France to rebuild the critical infrastructure. Also, on the other hand, Ukraine still has a few atomic power plants, and this is a big issue for the country because most of the electricity comes from the atom power plants. Without this energy, I have no idea how we would survive. So if Ukraine would not rebuild the power plants in last years, there would be no electricity at all. It's very similar in Russia. Some while ago, we have heard that about 60% of Russian refineries has been damaged, but Russia also rebuilt it, and Ukraine is doing the same. So when something is destroyed, there is already prepared a part to be replaced somewhere in the warehouses in the country, delivered from international partners of Ukraine.
All right. And you mentioned earlier as well that this is the fourth winter that Russia has been pounding the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. How would you compare these attacks throughout the year? Is this year's attack comparable to that of the previous years? Is there a pattern there?
This year was, I think, harder than the previous years. In the first year of the war, Russia haven't been attacking critical infrastructure of the country that hard, and I was even surprised why they are not doing that, because it was and it is still very effective, path for Russia to put down the morale of Ukrainian people and determination to fight in the future, because really you cannot imagine how it is to live 16, 18 hours per day without the electricity. You can get used to do it, but it's still not very comfortable. So this year and the last year were very difficult for Ukraine, because Russia intensified attacks on critical infrastructure. We even had this year, we had the situation that Russia targeted atomic power plants. We remember that they sent drone to Chernobyl. Atomic power plant is turned off, but still very dangerous. We had problems in Zaporizhia. We had some information about Khmelnytsky atomic power station. In 2023, Russia destroyed the dam on the Dnipro River, and it was also very dangerous for Zaporizhia atom power plant, because the water was cooling the generators in and they used fuel in Zaporizhia. So yes, Ukraine is managing how to survive in this kind of circumstances, but still it cost a lot of effort, not only from Ukraine, but also from the partners of the country. And some of the power plants, they are completely destroyed, and they need to use the atom energy. And Ukraine has to buy also the energy from the West. They are buying energy from Hungary even, and from Poland, from Slovakia, from the other countries, because otherwise the problem would be a lot more serious. Right now, if Russia will intensify the attacks in following weeks, Ukrainian government is also thinking to cut down like a big users, of the energy, to send more electricity for the private people.
Right. So, yeah, very dire situation right there. Hope you're holding up okay. Meanwhile, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on Eastern Express.
Thank you very much.
And now we're moving on to the Eastern News Flash, a series of all the other stories from the East that you don't want to miss. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for an Article 5-like guarantee for Ukraine. The proposal has come as the president meets with American envoys in Berlin.
The efforts to achieve peace in Ukraine are continuing unabated, though with Ukraine seemingly presenting itself as willing to play ball on certain conditions. Kiev has been pushing for NATO-like guarantees, but has given up ambitions for full membership in the alliance for now. Nonetheless, the Ukrainian side continues to emphasize the need for a just peace that will prevent any future Russian attacks. Ukrainian proposals also continue to reject territorial concessions, while the Russians are adamant about taking even more territory. The current round of talks in Berlin goes over a revised peace plan based on an earlier US 28-point proposal, which was adjusted following both Ukrainian and European input.
Russia's oil and gas export revenue is expected to fall to its lowest level since 2020. This drop amounts to nearly half of what the revenue was in 2024.
Oil and gas are the fuels on which the Russian economy runs. Since they both make up around a quarter of Russia's federal budget revenue, this year's massive drop has put a terrible strain on the Russian government's finances. Major factors driving this decrease have been the decline of global oil prices, as well as hesitancy from major partners like India to purchase Russian oil in the wake of US sanctions on Russian crude. One of the options available to the Kremlin is to borrow even more money to cover the budget's shortfalls if revenue remains low in the early months of 2026. Given this poor financial performance, it seems that Western sanctions aimed at crippling the Russian economy and its ability to wage war are finally exacting a heavy toll.
Belarus has freed over 100 political prisoners, including Maria Kolesnikova, as well as Nobel Prize winner Alice Bieletsky. Minsk agreed to the release in exchange for the lifting of U.S. sanctions on potash exports.
Belarus fully committed itself to becoming a terrorist state, which is holding political prisoners hostage to force Western nations to abolish sanctions in exchange for their freedom. While the families of the prisoners rejoice at the reunions and Belarusian oppositionist movements regain key leaders, the situation also proves to Minsk that it can use human lives as tender for its economic needs. Nonetheless, this exchange signals, at the very least, Minsk's willingness to cooperate with the West to some extent, despite its borderline satellite ties with Russia. What's more, many of the political prisoners were released through Ukrainian territory instead of the European Union. This move was appreciated by the Ukrainian president as part of the wider ongoing geopolitical negotiations.
And that's all on this episode of Eastern Express. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.